Hello, I'm Matt Jablow. Today on the crime scene, a horrifying murder shocks the Johns Hopkins Homewood campus. A large reward is offered, and police conduct an extensive investigation. But 10 years later, Chris Elser's killer has still not been found. In the spring of 2004, Chris Elser was a 20-year-old junior at Johns Hopkins, a good student and a good athlete, a young man said to have a dazzling personality and a palpable love of life.
He was kind and generous, committed to his team, he was a soccer player, and to his fraternity, to community service, and to academics in Johns Hopkins.
On April 17, 2004, Chris was sleeping at his fraternity house in Charles Village, just a few blocks from campus. Police say right around 6 o'clock in the morning, a man trying to burglarize the frat house came in through an open back door and went to the room where Chris was sleeping. According to police, when Chris woke up, he confronted the burglar, who then stabbed Chris several times before stealing a computer and taking off. As he lay bleeding on the floor, Chris was said to have told the frat brother, quote, "I tried, I fought." Chris Elser died the next day.
It was an emotional drain on everyone, knowing that a student that was so well loved was suddenly gone.
In the hours and days after Chris's death, Baltimore police launched an all-out investigation, but leads were scarce. Not helping matters, that stolen computer could not be found. At the same time, Chris's friends and family had begun the agonizing process of coping with Chris's loss. More than 2,000 people came to an outdoor memorial service on the Hopkins campus, where the school president called it a time of, quote, excruciating sadness. And the family friends said they will most honor Chris by living every shimmering moment to the fullest.
It's really, it still hurts.
A few months after the murder, a $50,000 reward was offered, and Baltimore police asked for the public's help in finding a man who was caught on surveillance video walking near Chris's frat house right around the time of the murder. It was the best lead police had had to that point, and as it turned out, probably the only really solid lead in the 10 years since the murder. Unfortunately, the lead never panned out, and the case is now cold.
If this case was solved, it would be a real consolation to everybody at the university and certainly to Chris's family and friends.
With all that in mind, if you have any information that could help detectives solve Chris Elser's murder, you're asked to call the Baltimore City Homicide Squad at 410-396-2100. Or, if you'd like to remain anonymous, contact Crime Stoppers at 1-866-7-LOCKUP. And it's worth mentioning once again that even if you don't have any information, you can still move the case forward by sharing the link to this video on social media and helping spread the word. Remember, very often, one tip is all it takes. That's all for this edition of The Crime Scene. Next week, we go back to 1989 and back to Johns Hopkins, where a 22-year-old grad student was beaten to death in her off-campus apartment. 25 years later, her killer has still not been arrested. That's next week on The Crime Scene. Until then, be sure to follow the very latest crime news on the Sun's Baltimore Crime Beat blog and on Twitter at Baltimore Sun. I'm Matt Jablow. Thanks for watching.